So, hello and welcome to the West Midlands People Podcast with myself, Ashley Wright, and my colleague, John Morris, both from West Recruitment Group. And today's guest, we have the pleasure of speaking with Helen Crooks from Right People HR. Hello, Helen.
Good morning. Hello. Hi.
Good morning. So, Helen, over to you. Would you like to introduce yourself and your business?
Yes, of course. Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me to chat to you today. It's really good to do that. So, yes, my business is Right People HR, Right being WRIGHT. And our philosophy is a very, very simple one. If we've got the right people in place, then that opens the door to success. Get the right people in place and it's a joy. Get the wrong people and it's just one problem after another. So I've been in business for a long time now. My background is in logistics, so I've been recruiting people for around coming up to 30 years now, and so I've made lots of good decisions and quite a few bad ones as well. So it's just about homing in the best ways of getting the right people on the right seats, and then once they're in there, developing them within the business. And that's what we do at Right People. It's about being that HR partner, so that when you've got the right people in the right seat, then it's how we can develop those people, how we can improve their performance, how they can grow, and how basically the company can grow with those people in it, making sure that those people are valued, making sure that they're adding value, and that everything's just in place, doing the right things at the right time. And problems are going to happen, but it's actually making sure that we address those problems when they happen. Because the vast majority of phone calls I get are from people who say, I've got this issue with so and so in accounts and we don't know what to do. So I say, well, how long have you had this issue? And they say, oh, for about 8 years. And it's like, well, why haven't you addressed it? And people just don't like to address things, and they just like to let things carry on, and then you end up with a problem. So it's about just having the right processes and the right procedures in place, so that when something does go astray, which it's going to from time to time, then you've got the right tools to get the people back on track.
So, and I think that's really interesting. And I think especially now, given the situation that all of us are in with regards to COVID, I can imagine that there are a lot of businesses that are having more problems with their staff, and especially now that majority of businesses are working from home. So there's the added pressure of managing remote workforces as opposed to having your staff in front of you on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes in that situation, it can be easier to manage those problems, I suppose. So from your experience, Helen, and with the businesses that you've been working with recently, how would you advise is the best way to go about managing a remote workforce?
Well, that's a really good question, because I mean, I work with lots and lots of businesses all across the West Midlands and beyond, and they're all very different as well. So from creative design agencies to construction to architects to it's just absolutely everything that we get involved with. And so it's really interesting to see how different people have reacted. But the one thing that is happening, and I think this is pretty much across all businesses, is that when COVID obviously kicked in almost a year ago now, everyone panicked a little bit. Everyone was sent home, and everyone coped, because you do, when you're thrown into a situation, you do cope. But for the first, well, more or less up until to date, really, everyone's been really focused around the COVID situation, the coronavirus. People got coronavirus, working from home policies sorted. And that was all fine, and that's what businesses had to do. But what I've found is that the regular things that they were doing beforehand have actually slipped back a little bit. So things like the review process or the one-to-one process, or giving very frequent feedback, whether that be positive or negative, that all seemed to stop. because people were firefighting against getting the, just dealing with the situation that they were faced with. And that's understandable. But what's happened is the normal things, which are just generally happen day to day, things like, absenteeism, or we've had lots of disciplinary issues, or we've had gross misconduct issues, all those things have continued to happen. So what's really, really important is the engagement of staff. So absolutely making sure that you've got the staff engaged. I know it's a little bit more difficult, and it's a little bit, you've got to be more creative in the way that you do that. But it is possible, and it can be done. And those companies that have come through this and are actually doing really well have managed to combine doing the everyday, but also being able to firefight with what's going on as well. So
yeah,
I think, the reviews, I've spoken to some companies and they've said, well, we haven't really done a review since last February because it's been really difficult. Yes, it is difficult, and it's not as natural doing it on Zoom, but it is possible. But actually, it's been more important over the last 12 months to be doing it than it probably has been before. So those companies who are really doing well are doing the regular one-to-ones, they're doing the reviews. There was a little bit of a reprieve in the middle of the year, wasn't there, when some offices did go back, and that was good. But there's so many other things that you can be doing, but it's really important to keep the routine of one-to-ones, reviews, appraisals, and all the social things as well. I mean, obviously the old water cooler situations and conversations that you used to have aren't really happening, but a lot of companies are just having an hour a week where you just log in on Zoom or something and you have a chat, because that's really important. But the everyday stuff is still going on, and then there's been all the added things as well. So it's just really important to try and get that balance.
Yeah, I agree, Helen. I think because everyone went into like a crisis response, we're in uncharted waters, and I think it's just given people time to reflect a little bit and, like you say, reboot, re-engage with your staff. And I suppose for a couple of points, really, from a business perspective and I suppose from a mental health perspective, that's obviously very high on the agenda at the moment. So I think a lot of companies will look at the workforce strategies a lot differently going forward. I mean, what do you see? Do you see any positives or challenges that we'll have potentially coming up in terms of the availability of skill sets out there?
I think there's two sides to that, really. I think going forward, you touched on the mental health thing there, which I think is really important, and a lot of the problems that we're getting, a lot of the challenges that we've got at the moment is some people have really taken to being at home, working from home, and they absolutely love it. And in that, you've got two categories. You've got those people who have just worked and can't leave the laptop because it's always there, and they've probably worked way more hours than they would normally. And then you've got the other people who have done their set hours and really enjoyed having that flexibility because they haven't had the computer or whatever. So you've got the two sets there, those who have worked a lot harder and those who have actually got quite a nice balance. So I think for those people coming back into work, it's going to be, for both sets, it's going to be really difficult because you get into a habit, don't you? And they say 30 days changes a habit. So it's going to be in excess of 12 months. So I think we've got a lot of issues around anxiety at the moment. So we've got those who are worried because they might have been on furlough for a prolonged amount of time now, and they're worried about, does the business still want them back, and can they still have they still got the skills that they need, have things moved on, have things changed? So there's a lot of anxiety around that. And then there's also the people who so they're anxious about going back to work. And then there's also people who are anxious about, whether there's still a job there for them. So, there's a lot of anxiety around this, a lot at the moment. And I've just done a course in mental health first aid because I just felt that I was in situations that I just needed to be better equipped for. So
I think a lot of people have had to, haven't they?
They're so worried about what they can say, what they can't say. These conversations are difficult. So, what we're encouraging is to get some mental health champions within the business, and to have a real cross section of the business as well. So not really for the MDs or the senior management team to do it, but to have people across the business, so that whoever it is feels that they can relate to somebody within the business. So we're doing quite a lot of that at the moment, and training the champions about, how do you, if someone says to you, I'm struggling, or I'm worried about this, how do you open that conversation? Because it's a bit of but a lot of it is around, skill sets and things, because we've had to learn to do things differently. And because, we are doing things in a different way, some people are worried that, have they got the skill set now? Have things moved on? Have things changed? So that is an issue.
So what would you recommend then so if I think of businesses who have placed staff on furlough for a prolonged period of time, and they're preparing to bring those staff members back into the workplace, what would you recommend that businesses need to be doing now in preparation for their staff to return, in order to, I suppose, ease any concerns that they may have regarding, do I still have the skill set? Has the business moved? Can I still do the job? Because I suppose businesses are going to have to start thinking about that now and preparing for that, rather than on day one of their staff coming back, then thinking, oh God, right, what should we be doing? So what should businesses be thinking about now in order to ease that process for them?
Well, now is exactly the time to be doing something about it, because obviously, restrictions are starting to ease. And I think, the thing with the schools going back, that's started to open that door, hasn't it? And I think from the end of March, the government was saying that they're going to look at that, the work from home, if they're going to drop that. So really, really important. Then we've got the Easter break, and a lot of the businesses I'm working with at the moment are this week and next week sort of putting together a notification to go out to all staff to say that we're going to be talking to you all individually over the next week or so, to see how they're feeling, and just to communicate to them what the plans are for the business, because I think most people are trying to get them back around the middle of June, and that 24th of June is the magic date, isn't it? That people are looking to get back to some sort of normality. But I think what's really important here is to look at a phased return. And what I think we need to do is try, because some things has worked really well, and a lot of businesses have thought, actually, I do get a lot of product. If they've managed it correctly and they've engaged correctly, their productivity with people working from home has probably gone up. And they've worked really, really well. They've probably added more value. It's been, from a cost point of view, they haven't had the office costs, and some businesses are actually looking to reduce the sizes of their offices and then have sort of a hybrid working situation. So you might have someone working from home 2 or 3 days a week, and then back into the office. Others are thinking, well, actually the day-to-day can be done at home, but we'll have traction meetings, we'll have certain meetings throughout the week, so we're bringing people in, but actually we're letting them go off. So I think it's really important to harness what's worked really well and use that to their advantage. But at the same time, I think you've got to take on board the opinions and the anxieties of the staff. A phased return is the best way to go, really. So it's not saying, and I've had this, people saying, I've had a call from a manager and he wants me back on Monday and I'm not mentally prepared for that. I do get that, because it has been a long time and people have got into very different habits. But you sort of put yourself back 12 months ago and you just went to the office every day, and how quickly, really, I know it has been a long time in many respects, but in another respect, it's been the blink of an eye, and a lot has changed. So I think, getting people in on a gradual basis, talking to them, finding out, how they're feeling about it, what's worked well, what's not worked so well, what do they think the advantages are from being at home, what the advantages of being in the office, and try and get some sort of mix, and to make sure that you are mixing groups of people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, that you perhaps have you might have a production meeting where you just have your production meeting, but then I think it's important then to bring other people in as well, so that you can get that blend going on. But it's really important to start looking at it now, because a phased return, takes a little time. So if you start looking at it from sort of the beginning of April, I would have thought that then by the beginning of June, you're getting something which is quite fluid.
Yeah.
If people have got particular anxieties about it, then you've got the time. Some people will just come back in and they can't wait to get back in, because they love the office environment, they love being with other people, and other people have obviously taken a very different view of it. So it's just getting, I think, what the problem is people have become very, not selfish is the right word, but they've called me and said, but I can work from home and I can do my job from home. Yes, you can, and I appreciate that, and obviously you have done it, but actually, is it the right thing for the business? So what we're trying here is it's a balancing act. We're trying to balance what's right for the individual. We're trying to balance what the instructions are from the government, and are you doing the right thing, and in terms of your responsibility as a business. And also, has the business might be able to survive with people being at home, but is it thriving? Is everybody adding the value that they can add, or can we get more out of it? And at the end of the day, it's going to be what the business needs. It's working with the individuals to make sure that we can just get this. And I've had, over the past 4 or 5 weeks, people on a phased return, and I had one lady last week and she was, I can't go back, this is really worrying me. And I rang her on Friday and I said, how are you feeling? She says, I'm really excited. She says, I've got my head around it. She says, I've thought about it, and so it does work. But it be a bit frustrating for you look at it from the MD's side, and they just want people back in as soon as possible. So it is, and it's about re-educating everybody. So it's a process.
Talking about skill sets as well, I think more there's going to be an element of companies that are going to focus less on the roles themselves and more of the skills of the workers. And I think that is a positive. Like, that'll give more opportunity for workers to develop skills, to further enhance other opportunities within the businesses. Have you come across anything like that in your line of work?
Absolutely. I mean, things have changed. People have changed. People have had to look at doing things differently. They've picked up different skills, realised that they might have even had time for training and doing completely different things. So, I think that's been really, really important. And a lot of people have taken this time to either retrain or, perhaps had the time to look at something else that they've always wanted to do, but just haven't had the time. So I think that's really, really important. Yeah. So absolutely. Yeah.
We were actually just having that conversation with Raka, who we interviewed on a previous episode of the podcast, because she went from a very corporate business development sales background into will writing and inheritance tax. Very, very different, but we spoke about that then. And excuse me, a positive, I suppose, from COVID is people who have unfortunately either been made redundant or they've been put on furlough, or the business, whatever might have happened. It's given people an opportunity to think, do you know what? I've done what I've done for 20 years. I'm a bit fed up of it. Let's look at something else. So there are positives to come out of it as well.
Absolutely. I think people have taken this time to reassess, and actually what I want to do, or it's given people that time to look at, you know, what they see themselves doing in the future. So I think that's really, really positive. And, you know, I think for businesses as well on that side, that it's given them chance to say, okay, well, perhaps we need to do things differently, or perhaps we need to change things within the business. So, yeah, there's been a lot of positives, I think, and there's been the negative side as well. But you know, we've I just think we do, don't we? We cope and we do change, and you can change. It will come more natural to some people, obviously. I've been doing quite a lot of psychometric testing as well, because I do that in recruitment and also when in reviews. So and behaviours and fits. And I mean, you've probably come across this with recruitment, how important it is to get the right behaviour and to get the right fit into the business, because actually the skill set, you can train that, and you can influence that, but you can't really influence the behaviour that much. So, and I've noticed there's been a lot of change in behaviour as well.
Just going back to what you said before about businesses who are bringing staff back and getting staff to come back on a phased return. Now, and I know you did mention as well that you've had calls from some people who have said, I'm not mentally ready to go back, etc. But at the same time, it is what's right for the business. How do you advise businesses go about managing that process with their staff who may not be ready to come back and are saying, well, I've proved that I can do my job from home? Because that's something else. That's just another obstacle, I suppose, to overcome as well. And I get it's difficult for businesses if they're trying to manage the mental health aspect of staff and manage their anxieties, but at the same time, the business is paying their wages. So how should that process be managed? And I suppose, what rights do business owners have when it comes to managing that process?
It is really, really difficult. And, you know, the vast majority of business owners do want the people back. I think, you know, they do see that there are advantages, and, you know, it has worked. And I think most people have understood that. But I would say the vast majority of people that we're working with, they want the people back in the office. Now, I would say it's a small percentage of people that don't want to go back, because again, the vast majority do, or do at least on a split basis. But I've got 2 or 3 cases at the moment where the people are saying, I am not going back. And that is where the problem is. So it's about compromise. It's about compromise. And I think, you know, from a legal point of view, you know, if someone's been there for more than 6 months, they can put in a request for flexible working. So, but that, by, you know, definition, it is flexible. That's not, I'm just going to work from home all the time. So, and it always comes back to the business case, you know, will this fit the business needs? So I think, given what's happened in the pandemic and how it's affected people very differently, it is a massive headache for employers at the moment. And I do have one case where somebody's just refusing to go back into the office. So we're in the MD's having to really, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating, because, as you say, the business is paying their wages. It's not that they're not working. It's just that what more could we get out of them? So and it's about, also, it's not just about that person, it's about how they affect their team as well. And that's where I found that it's been easier to start the conversation. So it's not just about your little bit of what you do, it's how your little bit then affects the rest of the team. And I think when they understand that it's, you know, affecting their work colleagues, then it's an easier conversation. Because in some conversations, you've got the MD and you've got the employee, and you've got a bit of a gulf in between. So I think, I do think that once lockdown has completely finished, and obviously the vaccination program has been rolled out, and more people are feeling a bit more confident, I think it will get easier. But I think, you know, at the moment, it is very much about both sides having to understand where each person's coming from. And it's about talking, and it's trying to break down what are the worries, what are the anxieties, and just sort of working through it. But it is very, very tricky. Phase returns, as I said before, that's the best way. It's like, well, come in for a day and then come in for 2 days. And then, you know, but at the end of the day, the business, it's down to what the business needs. And if the business case is that, you know, you need the people in, then ultimately you will need those people in. So it's not going to be an easy road.
No.
At all, but lots of talking, lots of being open. And also, I think, you know, so I'm doing a lot of this because I'm outsourced. I can see both sides, but I can be a little bit more impartial as well. Whereas the MD's seeing it from his side and the workers seeing it from their side. So I'm doing not counselling, but a lot of these types of conversations. We went from 4 weeks ago, somebody not coming back at all, to now building up, doing mornings in the office and then working from the afternoon. So it's about progress, but probably won't happen overnight. It's about patient. But I think, you know, with the right conversations and the right interventions at the right time, it can be achieved.
I think there's just a lot of nervousness around it, and I know especially from from our perspective, when we've had people working from home and trying to bring them back in, and it is difficult to manage those anxieties and that other people are feeling, because you don't know what's going on in their personal lives a lot of the time. And I mean, from my perspective, I've never really been anxious about COVID, because I've just thought you've just got to keep on going through it. So, and I suppose maybe I've been a little bit insensitive in the past because I haven't personally been affected by COVID and have been worried by it. So it is difficult, because for business leaders, you have to change your mindset as well in order to be able to help the staff that you've got. And I know from my perspective, that's something that I've struggled with. And I know as well, I think sometimes when you're running a business, sometimes you feel as though employees have more rights than the employer, and being able to manage that as well. So I guess that's why I wanted to ask that question, so employers know where it is exactly that they stand, because I think with managing staff and having a workforce, you never quite know who is in the right and who is in the wrong, if you for want of a better phrase.
You do. And you know, with the I mean, I can remember 2 years ago people putting in flexible working requests, and it was a no, really, because they were saying, no, we need you in the office. And there's one company who I was saying to them, look, you know, you're creative designers, you've got these developers, they could be as effective. They don't need to be active. They could be as effective elsewhere. And the MD was like, no. He's now one of the people who are considering just having a office for meetings and everyone work from home. He's in a complete shift in mindset. But the mindset's really important, and it's about this frame of reference, and it's about your window on the world. And you know, you do have a window and you do have a lens that you look through. And you know, it's about how it goes back to upbringing and beliefs, and it could be education, it could be all sorts. And I'm sure, you know, we've all had people come to us and they've said, well, I'm stressed about this. And you do judge, and you think, how can they be stressed? They haven't got half as much on. I'm doing this and this and this. That's because we've got a different lens and we're looking at it. And I don't know if you've heard about the stress container, but everyone's got a stress container. It's like a funnel. Some people have got large stress containers, other people have got very narrow ones. But what it is, everything goes in the top, and then everything should eventually come out the bottom. But sometimes those coping mechanisms which open up the bottom of the funnel aren't working correctly, and that's probably what's at large here with a lot of people with these who've got the anxieties. So you've generally got your MD who's got a fairly large stress container because there's a lot of stress going on within a business, and they're used to having it piled in. Then you might have someone who's, you know, on the face of it doesn't seem to have that many issues or that many things to juggle. But at the end of the day, if their container's not opening, if their coping mechanisms aren't opening, their problem is as big as anybody else's.
Yeah.
So it's trying to listen non-judgmentally, and that's really hard. That's probably the hardest thing to do.
So do you think it's important then for business owners, directors, managers to be having these conversations during the one-to-ones with their staff to find out what anxieties, what stresses they have, so that the business can be more understanding and can be more helpful?
Yeah, absolutely, to see what interventions to be, because if you think of the sort of mental, because everyone's got a mental health, and most people got a good mental health, but it does change. So you know, you want to be in the first part of that graph where, you know, you've got good mental health. It's when you start creeping into the middle of that where anxieties are, that's where we need to act, and that's where we need to, you know, help, because when we go beyond that, then that's difficult, and when we're in that situation, it's really difficult to get out. So we're encouraging businesses now to, you know, let's talk about, let's give you a little toolkit of how to sit down, how do you approach this conversation, how do you listen non-judgmentally. And I think most of the time, I mean, I'm a fixer, and if people will come to me with a problem and I just want to fix it, I think, oh, we can do this, this and this. I can, because I've probably got quite a large stress container, but it's not about me they've got to fix it. So it's about encouraging them to find out ways of how they can fix the problem, not like me saying, oh, this and this, because to me it might sound really simple.
Yeah,
I think that's where most MDs and, you know, business leaders come from. They think, wow, you know, I'm doing all this and why can't they do that? But they're not looking at it in the same way. So it's hard, really hard.
And do you think as well, with different generations in the workplace also thrown into the mix, that adds an extra complication?
Yeah, it does. And generally, you know, the older side are struggling a little bit more. So, I mean, you know, I've got young daughters and who haven't really been affected. They've worked all the way through, and they're like, well, what's the problem? So I think it does, you do view it a little bit differently as well. That's you know, other people who, you know, I can't wait to go back. It does depend on the person, but I do think you know, the ages are, there's some of that at play as well, not just not trying to be too, you know, general about it, but that does obviously have an effect. Yeah.
An effect. And from a retention point of view, Helen, what retention strategies are you seeing that are working at the moment, given people working from home and so on? Because retention is really important. So is there anything that businesses can be doing to retain their staff in a better way during the current pandemic with people working from home?
Yeah, and it's the same old. It's about engagement. So reviews are absolutely imperative, you know, and a lot of companies have now gone to monthly reviews. It's not seeing someone for a month is a long time. So whereas perhaps before they were doing a quarterly review or a half yearly review, they're now doing monthly reviews because it's so important. And that month to some individuals will fly, but to others it will seem like a really long time. And if someone's been on their own in, you know, in a flat, or you know, if they haven't got family around them, that month is a really long time. And I've been doing reviews for a lot of businesses, and they say, oh, we really look forward to this. It's someone different to speak to. You get a different perspective on things. So continuing with reviews is really, really important, and giving them the time to talk. That obviously gives you an insight into how they're feeling. You know, what you might expect down the road, you know, are there any things here that are going to show up later on? So that's really important. Regular communication, and to try and get some social elements in there as well, some sort of group activities, and not everybody likes that, and people are getting fed up and zoomed out, and you think, crikey, I can't do another Zoom quiz because it's going to drive me crazy. But other people still do like it, so it's trying to have a variety of things. Training, and going back to skills and everything. A lot of people have been doing new things, have been taking the time, particularly if they've been on furlough, they've been able to be doing some training as well. So that's been really important. But offer that to them, because that's a good thing to do. Perhaps to give them little projects. I mean, one company I work for, they've given one of the ladies was to look at a new HR system. So she used that time to look at different softwares available and set all that up. She's been really excited by that. So it's, retaining your good staff is obviously very, very important, because you go through all your recruitment and the onboarding, and once you've done all that, you want to retain them. So I think, communication, engagement, and to make them feel that they're still part of the business, because the vast majority of people are feeling as though they're, they are disengaged, and they are not forgotten, but they're just getting on, particularly in some, like developers, they're just developing all day. It can be really quite tough. So
from a recruitment perspective, then bringing new staff members into a business where everyone's working from home, which I've heard a lot of examples of, and I know that the business owners have been a bit concerned as to how do you engage a brand new member of staff who doesn't know the rest of the team. And I suppose for current members of staff it is difficult, but they know other members of the team, they can pick up the phone, send them a text, so it's a little bit different. What do businesses need to be doing from an engagement perspective when hiring new staff who haven't had an opportunity to even meet anyone else physically?
Yeah, I mean, it has happened. It's happened a lot. And actually, the last few months, we've had quite a bit of recruitment going on. So we have been recruiting people. And this one, developer, this software company that I'm working for, they've recruited from the Netherlands and Dubai. So, it can work. And again, it's about just trying to involve them and have a meet and greet with everybody, and set up a meeting so that they can meet everybody at least virtually, and then have a social event pretty early on so that they can meet everybody. If you can try and get some sort of face-to-face, socially distant, that obviously really does help. But I think, if you do the profiling, you'll get to know what their behaviours are as well, and their personality. So you'll know they're a really high influence person, that communication is really important. You have to be really on top of that, because they're going to need that, because it's part of their behaviour. If they're a little bit more introvert, then treat that in the way that you feel fit. But it's about not overpowering them and not putting them under too much pressure, but but there's been a lot of recruitment going on, and it really has worked.
We've seen that as well. I mean, our business, especially on the permanent side, when COVID first hit and everyone went working from home, it pretty much all just fell flat on its face. Thankfully for us, about 80% of our business is temporary recruitment. So we did really well, and we've actually grown on the temp side. But over the past few months, the perm business has just went through the roof, which has been great. So do you think that during a recruitment process interview process, shall I say, it's important? Do you think it would be worthwhile employers asking potential candidates how to keep them engaged and motivated when working from home, so that they know exactly the best ways to get the best out of them.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, ask them the question, you know, how can and you'll get to know what makes them tick, what makes them work, you know, you'll get to know that. But when I've been doing my profiling, I've actually said, right, we're going to have to, you know, do a lot in this area with this person, because they are very gregarious, they are very positive, they like people around them, so we're going to have to make them feel really wanted, really part of the team. So, but you know, ask them, and they know obviously what they're coming into. It's not going to be as normal as it probably would be. But then, you know, I mean, I've done loads and loads of, well, everything I've done probably has been over Zoom, and obviously some not so very nice meetings as well. But I also find that actually some of these meetings are more intimate in a way, because, you know, there's you and that person on the screen. You can't be sort of looking around and seeing what else is going on, and you do gel more. So, and a guy who was taken on for business a few weeks ago, I've spent so much time with him, and then he went into the office and I was on a call and he says, oh, I heard the familiar voice straight away, you know, and I thought, crikey, you know, that's even working, but remotely. So
I agree with that. I mean, I only, excuse me, I only just moved down to the West Midlands in October to set up the office alongside John. And I've not met all of the new business connections that I've made since being down here have been over Zoom. And I've actually got a small group of people that I've met who are now classed as friends and who I speak to 2 or 3 times a week. And we have a joke about it and I say, I don't even know how tall you are or anything. But we've been able to build up that relationship purely by Zoom. And I'm so excited to be able to meet them personally. So I do agree that Zoom has worked and has enhanced relationships, but I guess it's all dependent on the type of person that you're meeting with on Zoom as well.
It is. And you know, one of the things, and I should have mentioned this before, whilst doing reviews, what does worry me is if I'm doing a review and someone hasn't got the camera on.
Yes.
That's like I say, you know, is everything okay? You know, it's a bit of a warning sign. And most of the times I say, oh, it's just because you know, I'm in the bedroom and partner's in bed or something. That's fine, you know, I get that. But if it's continued, that's warnings that why don't you want us to see you? Is there a problem? You know, that sort of thing. So that is something to watch out for. Definitely. But I do think that you can make the most of it. And you know, one of my clients down in Northamptonshire, who I used to see regularly, but now it's like daily and it's all Zoom, and I just feel as I know them so much better. And so much more communication, you know, so it has really worked.
Great. Well, Helen, it's been a pleasure to have you. The last question I've got, which we ask everyone, is with it being the West Midlands People Podcast, what is it that you love about the West Midlands?
The West Midlands, well, being an East Midlander by birth, lived here a long time now. It's just so diverse, you know. That's what I probably like about it the most. It's just, I mean, I work with so many different businesses, so many different types of people, and I just think yeah, it's a great place to be, like being very much in that centre. So geographically you can sort of get anywhere.
You know, I've lived it since moving down here. I mean, I'd never been outside of Newcastle in my life and moved down. And you're right, it is diverse and everyone's been really lovely and really welcoming as well. Second home for me now. Helen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to speak to you. And we will speak to you again soon.
Fantastic. Thank you very
much, Helen.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.